when it comes to the Raptors fan base, especially in the YouTube space as far as the Raptors community is concerned, when it comes to the Raptors fan base, they love to be optimistic. They love to back their team. But even amidst a team now that has a young core in place, a promising core in place that we're very much hoping can expand and see large improvements next season, even with all this in place for the team, fans are still not as optimistic as I would have expected for the upcoming season. And let me show you why here. We are back at it again on Amateur Hour Clips, where we continue to provide you with Toronto Raptors news coverage and analysis. But over on this channel, we take the best highlights and segments from the main channel, Amateur Hour Sports, where we do live streams covering the Raptors even further and put them on this channel to make it a whole lot easier for you to consume the content. If you like what you see from this video today, make sure you are subscribed to the channel because we're always dropping content over here that you're not going to want to miss out on, especially if you are a Toronto Raptors fan. And also along the way, it really does support the channel if you smash that like button. Now, let's get back to the video. So as I often do on the Raptors or on the Amateur Sports community tab, I ask for polls. I put up polls and I ask for the general consensus from Raptors fans. And typically, when it comes to these polls, I can get a good sense of where the polls are going to end up. And a lot of the times, I just know that the polls are going to be heavily favoring the Raptors. They're going to be a little bit biased. Like I remember a couple seasons ago, I put up who's going to win the NBA championship, and I'll put or who's going to win the Eastern Conference, and I'll put Boston, Milwaukee, Philly, the Raptors, and then any other team in the East. And the Raptors would win because it's and the comments are I don't care what their chances are. I'm always going to vote for the Raptors. I'm always going to back the Raptors. People just want to be excited about the Raptors. And I think that's great. You want to be excited about sports. You want to be excited about your team. That is typically the case with these polls. So when I see results for polls I put up, I often look at it and go, yeah, this is a little bit biased, but I take it for what it is. People want to be happy about their team. But this most recent poll I did actually caught me a little bit off guard because it was a bit more pessimistic than I would have thought. Now, the answer that had the highest amount of votes is not surprising, but it's the rest of it that's a touch surprising. So I asked, where will the Raptors finish in the standings next season, the 24-25 season? And the majority of the answers, or at least the highest percentage, came from the lower play-in seed, 9 to 10 seed in the Eastern Conference, which got 37% of the votes. Now, typically what I would see here is the upper play-in seed, the higher chance, or the higher seed would have more votes than the lower spot. But only 17% of people voted that the Raptors would finish 7th or 8th, and 23% said 11 or 12, and 14% said bottom 3 in the East, so 13 to 15 seed. So this season has really soured the community to a point where there's maybe more pessimism, is that a word? Than there has been in previous years. So it's kind of a shame that we're at this point now as a fan base where there's that lack of belief almost now. And one of my members, Thomas Perry in chat, says it's a bit off with the usual results. Yeah, I just wasn't expecting this. I was expecting, honestly, some of the comments to be like why is there such a big gap here? They could finish anywhere in the top 6. Why do you leave 6 whole spots there, but only 2 here, 2 here, 2 here, and 3 here? Well, because unlike if the Raptors finish top 6. But in the end, not a lot of people voted top 6, only 9%. And more people voted they'd missed the play-in before saying there'd be an upper play-in seed as a 7 or 8 seed. So the reality is maybe there's a growing understanding of what this team is. Maybe there's a growing sense of maybe there's a growing pessimistic sense with this team. I think that, honestly, the results are not even, maybe even I'm more pessimistic to these results. I think that the likeliest spot where the Raptors finish next season is 11 to 12. I think the second likeliest spot is 9 to 10. It's just going to be a tough season, Orlando have built up. They're a good team. The Pacers are a good team. Celtics aren't going anywhere. The Bucks will be back. The Sixers will be back. The Knicks are here. It's it's tough. You see a lot of teams continuing to improve in the Eastern Conference, and you don't really see where the drop-off is going to come. Miami are going to continue to push and continue to try and be a threat. Like there's just a lot of really good talented teams out there, and for the Raptors, it's good to feel a bit optimistic about the core, and I really do like the core, but to think everything is just going to be pieced together and fall into place this season, it's going to be tough to execute. So to have the optimism levels start to trend towards my sentiment, and I would say my typical optimism level with the Raptors is about, in the grand scheme on the optimism spectrum, I probably sit at around a 6.5, where I want to feel a little bit more excited about the team, but I try to be realistic and try to keep my expectations in check. I feel like the more common fans I see are in like the 8 range on that spectrum. They really want to be excited about the team. But yeah, I could agree with what 905 Yada is saying there. A losing season, losing all year, and losing our pick, it really broke some people, and it soured a lot of people. Near the end of the season, I asked in one of these polls, how much are you watching the Raptors now? And way more than I expected in the results said, I've just completely stopped watching the Raptors. Like, not even just watching the game here and there. A lot of people just completely stopped watching the team. And yeah, I understand how it can all fizzle out in such a way. So, what are the Raptors going to have to do to make a play-in seed? They're going to need to address a couple of key concerns with the roster. Backup point guard, namely. If they can, it'd be really beneficial to get a big wing defender. Bring in another big to add to the depth. I'm not saying replace Pirtle, but bring in another big for the depth so that when Pirtle's out, you still have size and rim protection. You're not stuck with only Kelly Olynyk. I like Kelly Olynyk, but it can't just be him. You need to add in a bit more size to the team and rim protection to the team. On top of that, look, maybe a little bit of extra shooting to the team. Just give Scottie Barnes the tools to succeed. Continue to see where RJ Barrett's development takes him. Continue to see where Emmanuel Quickly's evolution as a point guard takes him. Continue to see where Gradey Dick's development takes himself. And, it's a lot of solid players overall in the team. It's just, how far can this team go? I think that if the Raptors are trying to be honest with themselves, the expectation should be for them to fall in a play-in spot. And if the Raptors make the play-in tournament, even if they don't make the playoffs from that point, I think that should be regarded as a success on the season. But the Raptors, in my estimation, will have an 8 to 15 pick in next year's draft. That's just probably where it's going to end up. We all want it to turn around right away. We all want it to happen quickly, but that just may not be the reality. And based on the results of this poll, the sentiment right now is probably agreeing with me on this. Now, look, we're just coming off of a bad season. We're just coming off of losing our pick, which is, just got the mood down in the fan base. So once we bring in new players in the draft, once we sign guys in free agency, if a trade happens, look, all of a sudden I could be asking this poll down the line. Maybe we revisit this poll a couple months later, and all of a sudden the fans are back on board with the Raptors, and all of a sudden the fans are thinking, look, this team's good enough to just make the playoffs without worrying about the play-in tournament being a top 6 seed. So maybe we'll revisit it at this time. But the mood right now, at least since I started creating content around the Raptors over the course of the last 4 or 5 years, the mood right now about this team is the worst I have ever seen it. So hopefully, if it's not the results doing this year, just hopefully the performances start to make this fan base believe again. Because I always kind of didn't like when the poll results were super biased. But now it's kind of sad. It's like, man, even the polls, which are more biased towards the Raptors, aren't showcasing a lot of belief in the team. And again, that just feels a little bit sad.